Lord, we just ask you to look over our first responders as they go about their daily duties to protect our community. And Lord, look across those serving in our military as they protect our freedoms across this great nation. Lord, we know that if the tomb is empty, anything is possible. In that, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, for it's in his name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God, I haven't said that.
Thank you. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding. Here. Councilmember Horn.
Here.
Councilmember Jansen.
Here.
Councilmember Meza.
Here.
Councilmember Nichols.
Here.
Councilmember Sutton.
Here.
Mayor Hoffman.
Here, moving on to approval of the minutes, item A.
I move that we approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting held on February 21st, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
I move that we approve the minutes from the city council workshop held on February 23rd, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Council announcements. Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several announcements. Just want to remind everyone, in case you didn't know, early voting started today and goes through March 19th. Beaches Watch had a mayoral candidate forum with all of the Jacksonville mayor candidates, and the video of that forum is on the Beaches Watch website, which is beacheswatch.com. All questions were beaches-focused questions. So I would encourage you, if you haven't made a decision yet, please watch that video because I think it will be enlightening with regard to which ones really know what's going on at the beach and which ones don't. Also want to mention that the legislative session, the state legislative session starts tomorrow, and several of us will be going to Tallahassee in April to meet with our legislators. I will mention that I met with our House Representative Kyan Michael last week when she was in town, and she said that she wants to hear from constituents, and if you email her, she wants you to make it very clear in the email that you're a constituent, because she said she will read your email. So I thought that was really good to hear, very refreshing. Hopefully she'll be able to keep up with that. It's because I know there are usually a lot of emails through the session. Also, because of the session, you have an opportunity, thanks to the Florida League of Cities, to get legislative alerts from them. If you go to localvoicesunited.com, and they have a way for you to sign up for legislative alerts so that you can be made aware of things that would impact our communities. In particular, vacation rentals, again, this year has been, there's a bill that's been filed, several others that are very concerning. And last but not least, Scott Dudley, who's with the Florida League of Cities, he did speak at a Beaches Watch meeting last week and provided an overview of some of the concerning bills, and you can go to beacheswatch.com, see that video as well to hear some of the things that he has to say about what's going on in the legislative session.
Mr. Jansen.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Councilmember Golding said, I did participate in the Florida League of Cities call-in this morning, this morning. And the House bill that's in reference to vacation rentals is 833, and the Senate bill is 714. If you want to pull up those, just Google Florida House Bill 833 or Florida Senate Bill 714, and you can pull up the text for the bill itself, and you can read what it says. And they are talking about vacation rentals in both of those, and the occupancy regulations and that kind of thing. So it's very insightful information. Also, last week I participated in the absence of our mayor at the Jack's Beaches Chamber meeting, and it was a very good exchange of information. Not a lot came out as far as interest in our city, other than Beaches Baptist president brought up some conversation about maybe taking a look at 13th Avenue South, yes, and the revamp of it, because it needs some more work done to it. And last but not least, we had a planning workshop last week for parking, and we exchanged a lot of good ideas for residential, commercial. However, there was nobody in attendance from the public, but maybe some people listened to it online.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen, and thank you for sitting in for myself and city manager to the Chamber of Commerce board meeting. I was in DC representing Beaches Energy at the American Public Power Association legislative fly-in type of event, which hopefully was productive. One other announcement I'm surprised Ms. Golding didn't make is that we have the next round of Citizen Information Academy coming up. It's a great program. We started it last year, and we kind of kept it close to staff, elected, and board members, just to get through, work out the kinks in it and make sure it was a really effective program. So now it's ready for prime time. So if you have ever been interested in learning more about how our city operates, kind of from the inside out, please look into it. It is somewhat modeled after our highly successful Citizen Police Academy. You don't get to shoot anything, but you do get to tour the wastewater treatment facility, which is, okay, maybe not comparable, but still very interesting. It starts April 14th, and we have all sorts of information on our website, as well as social media, or I'm sure our city clerk would be happy to speak with you after this meeting, but we do encourage you to take a look at that. We will start with courtesy of the floor to visitors, and we do have a couple, and just bear with me as usual. We've got quite a few cards today. These are the ones that are unattached to an agenda item, although Sarah Bryan, you did indicate you wanted to speak about height, but not necessarily specific to Ordinance B. If you want to come on up, about 3 minutes to address the council. Can we get the courtesy of the floor? Start with your name and address.
Sure. Hi, Sarah Bryan, 403 12th Avenue South. My comments are not for anything on the agenda as stated. However, many in the community do feel as though the Latham Plaza could very well ultimately snowball into the previously proposed downtown CRA height incentive. So I wanted to expand on some comments that I made here on the 6th of February regarding what I see as a conflict of interest for Mr. Meza potentially voting on the CRA height incentive. My comments that night were unprepared. I did not plan on speaking, but the thought came to me, so I wanted to touch on it then. Coming away from that meeting, I did some research. I communicated my findings with the city attorney, and I appreciate that she supports my motivation in addressing you all with this again here this evening. So, thank you. Basically, we all know that Mr. Meza's bar falls within the parameters that are outlined in the proposed downtown CRA height incentive. My concerns stem from Mr. Meza's financial interest as a business owner, as well as his existing and long-standing business relationship and friendship with the property owner. This business associate also has financial interest in the potential CRA height incentive as well. Additionally, I believe that my concerns do coincide with the Florida statutes that's provided to me by Mrs. Robinson. So, Section 112.311, as would be applicable here, states if the official has a financial or other interest that is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of his or her official duties. It's my feeling that Mr. Meza's financial and other interests are present here. Additionally, Section 112.3143 regarding financial interests, quote, in which the official or a family member or a business associate would enjoy or suffer a special private gain or loss, i.e. any economic benefit or harm from a vote. It's my feeling that Mr. Meza and the existing property owner, aka his business associate, would enjoy special private gain from Mr. Meza's potential voting privilege on the CRA height incentive. All of this to say that I do feel that he has a conflict of interest. Beyond his own financial interest in his business associate and the property owner would also see significant financial gain and an increase in property value if the height incentive were to be passed. Last month I echoed sentiments that were shared by others, that some would be rolling in their graves over this right now. And to also remember the importance of honoring the legacy of all of those that sat before you and honoring the fight and the efforts of others that were made in 2004 for the height limit in general, like Ms. Williams, for example. Should the downtown CRA height incentive come up for eventual discussion, Mr. Meza's connections and interests should be further examined and considered by Mrs. Robinson. It was mentioned in a meeting that each of your votes represent something like 3,000 members of the community, and it's my opinion that his potential vote could be preoccupied by his business motivations and not look best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan. Kathy Hall.
Good evening. Kathy Hall at 1639 6th Street South, Jack's Beach. I'm going to read this because I'm not real comfortable with this public speaking stuff. So, I'm addressing you tonight because in the last two city council meetings, one held on February 2nd and February 21st, something became very clear to me. I attended the first meeting and watched the second on the YouTube feed. During those two meetings, a total of 64 people were here in the council chambers in their opposition.
The mic is going in and out, not working.
You need to speak into the mic.
Okay, sorry.
Lean over.
Got it. Better?
No.
Just the mic. It's on, but it's just choppy.
Okay.
She's got her mouth this close to it.
Right in. Oh.
Okay.
Just keep your mouth buttoned.
Okay, 64 people voiced their opposition to the PUD townhouse development. Okay, that, in other words, was 94% of the people.
That's all. Hold on one second. Can we get some new batteries on this?
You want me to yell?
No. Then it won't, I mean, we need it to
Okay.
pick up on the feed. Just give us a second.
It's echoing and it's not working.
That's it out. I got it. Thank you. We're just gonna try it. Just hold on. We'll start your time over because there was some disruption there. Just give me a second. Like a NASCAR pit crew over here.
Okay, let's do it. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test. Test.
That's better. Just put it in the
Test.
handle.
Okay.
No, it's still going in and out.
Not as bad as before. It's better. Like I said, it's better.
Try again.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test. Test.
Try it.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Can we, put pop a microphone up on the podium, I mean, on the edge here and have her speak into that? Maybe or actually, Sherry might be better.
I mean, how
Do you want me to
important
stand there?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Just come up there.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Test. Okay. Good, now I'm less nervous. Here. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Too close to the mic.
Better?
Yes.
Okay.
Your time again.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I am coming here tonight because during the last two council meetings, the one held on February 6th and the one held on February 22nd, something became very clear to me. Okay, I attended the first meeting on the 6th and watched the second on the YouTube feed. During those two meetings, a total of 64 people voiced their opposition to the PUD townhouse development, and 4 were in favor of that development. In other words, 94% of the people who cared enough to come to the city council meeting were opposed to that development. And that does not include those who contacted you via emails who were opposed to the development or for it. Okay, Mr. Sutton actually reported the number of emails he received in opposition during the first meeting, and during the second meeting, Ms. Golden reported who was in favor, how many were in favor and who were opposed. Okay? But the rest of you reported several or numerous emails opposed or in favor. I wonder now if you really know how many those were, and if you really read them. And I will explain why I wonder that now. Okay? Because the YouTube feed of the second reading of that ordinance on the 21st ended before the meeting did. So I didn't know who voted for what, okay, or how you voted. I contacted our city clerk, who kindly told me that the minutes of the meeting would not be available until March 2nd. Okay. So I sent an email to each of you explaining why I did not know the result and asked you how you voted. Only one person here, Ms. Golding, thank you, had enough respect for me, a citizen she doesn't even know, to get back to me and find an answer to my query. That is why I asked the rest of you if you even know how many emails you really received in opposition or in favor of that development. Then, to top it all off, the four of you who voted to approve that development obviously felt no need to offer an explanation or a reasoning of why you voted the way you did. To all of you but Ms. Golding, I say shame on you. You showed nothing but disrespect and disregard to me, a person who pays taxes and votes, when you could not bother to answer my email. You were put in a position to respect and hear and do what the citizens of this community want. If you cannot do that, you do not deserve to be sitting on the city council. Thank you for your time.
You feel free to wave your hands, but we're not going to be applauding. We've got a lot to get through today. Jeffrey Sandals. You want to cut, yeah, the makeshift podium over here. You got the girl.
Thank you for your time. I just want to bring forth some.
Start with your name and address.
Sorry, Jeff Sandels, 501 15th Avenue South. I just want to bring forth concerns I have about our golf course. I've been a member of the Beaches community for over 15 years, and for the duration of my time here, I've consistently played the course through both good and bad times. I'm currently a Beach Pass member as well. Growing up, I played competitive golf and cut my teeth on municipal golf, and over the past few years, I've been #truly blessed to play some top courses across the country in Wisconsin, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kansas, and Oregon. Thanks to Noah Up and others, Jack's Beach has gained widespread notoriety throughout the country, and I've been honored to tell this national community of golf sickos that this is my home golf course. I have two young boys who participate in the PGA Junior program, and as of this year, my oldest son is a member of the Fletcher Middle School golf team. My youngest son also attends Seabreeze Elementary. They both play in the PGA Junior program. However, this program has been discontinued at Jack's Beach. There are no local public options for them, as all other programs are private facilities. And additionally, the course is losing a significant number of highly decorated PGA professionals. By my count, we've lost the head of golf course operations, his top PGA professional, and another assistant pro. And so, as a taxpayer, I'm concerned about this large exodus. It's my understanding that we're charging junior program members to play and for range balls, in addition to charging local military veterans participating in therapeutic PTSD recovery programs through golf. Looking at the 2023 budget, the course is projected to bring in $2.8 million in revenue this year, which is a great success, in line with revenue for the past years. I also see proposed headcount changes that eliminate the assistant pro roles and reclassify the golf course facility manager position. I don't fully understand this, and I don't know why there need to be a change to a thriving operation like that. So the Parks and Rec Department mission statement reads, quote, create a sense of community, enhance the quality of life by providing safe, well-maintained parks that offer recreational activities for citizens of all ages, end quote. By charging junior golfers and military veterans, our city leadership seems to be implementing a policy that is fully and completely disconnected from this mission statement. I understand the need to be fiscally responsible, and in no way am I requesting to the city council that we be negligent in how we run the golf course. My request is that the city council issue a resolution to delegate authority of the course operations and policy of the golf course to the golf course manager. I think it currently runs up through the city management. My hope is that through doing this, the course can self-manage a full menu of free programs where our kids can learn the game with other kids and where we can do what's right to support the most vital citizens in our community and our country. Thank you, members of the city council, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sandels. Jeremy Poor?
Thank you. Jeremy Poor, 500 Penman Road. It's going to be really hard to beat what Jeff just said about the golf course, but that's also my concern. Like he said, the PGA Junior program, the Veterans program, and the operational changes taking place, maybe we're not in the know, maybe we don't know what's going on there because no one's bothered to tell us. That's a concern for us. When it comes to our children, that's why we're here. My kids go to Seabreeze and Fletcher. But I think the main contention with parents and not all of them can make it tonight is we don't know what's going on, but we see the leadership that's been guiding our kids through this program is disappearing. And like he said, mass exodus. It's not a flattering term. It's kind of cancerous. So I'm not going to take the full time because he knocked that out of the park. I don't want to waste your time, but that was an all-star move. But we would like to hear some feedback, at least see something out of this instead of just a bunch of unknowns and us being put in a black hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Ken Marsh.
Good job. Yeah. Good job.
Ken Marsh, 2011 Gale Avenue. Let me start off with some statistics. There are an estimated 15 million people in the U.S. that struggle with alcohol abuse. There are over 600,000 youths between the age of 12 and 17 that struggle with alcohol disorder. Last weekend, our downtown was extremely crowded and busy with the annual Seawalk Festival. And during the busy weekend, where we had thousands of guests and residents, one of our downtown business establishments, Tavern on First Street, had a bold statement on the overhead marquee that said, "You are making too many sober decisions." I don't find this funny, I don't find it clever, and I found it offensive. I respect the right of the First Amendment. I respect the right to advertise the business's goods and services or the drink specials. But the lines of decency were crossed when they discourage sobriety and encourage reckless and irresponsible behavior. The message is disrespectful to every downtown police officer that was out there this weekend doing the best they can, keeping the law and order with this massive crowd. It is the exact antithesis of our mission to embrace the beach life, where you can have fun, but bring your manners and be respectful. Back in 2020, Councilperson Meza was mentioned in 2 media outlets as being partial owner of the establishment in question. I went back in the property records to see if he's the current owner. However, like many businesses, the name is an LLC, and the names of those people are obscure. Mr. Meza, I don't know if you are in any way connected to this business. I did copy you in my 2227 email to the mayor, and I was hoping you would let me know and clarify whether you were or were not connected, and I haven't heard anything. I still hope you will reach out and clarify. But if you are connected, then I would say as a leader of this community that this displays a serious lack of good judgment on your part. And with that, my sincere apologies for even mentioning your name. And Mayor Hoffman, I hope that you find these messages as offensive as I do. You have semi-regular meetings with the downtown business community. This would be a perfect time to express the vision of our downtown, that citizen guests want to enjoy the businesses, but the expectation is that we do it in a respectful way. Perhaps in the past, signage like this was acceptable, but I am hopeful our downtown is moving in a positive direction. It is time to promote and support the action behaviors we desire, as well as discourage and reject those that are unacceptable. Let me say it one more time. It is time to promote and support the action behaviors we desire and discourage and reject those that are unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. That is it for the general comment cards. So we will move on to item A for the staff report. But I guess you'll also have to be from up here. Ms. Moss. Thank you. Yeah, I won't. All right, there we go. Taylor Mobb, CRA Coordinator. What you have before you is a request from the CRA to approve the purchase and installation of a mural on our downtown Cape building. And the selected artist came as a recommendation from the Public Art Advisory Committee, and then the CRA has also vetted the candidate. It is C. Stanley Creative, based out of Orlando, Florida. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just for the benefit of the group, can you just describe, when you say Cape Building, what you're talking about?
Yes, the actual address is 218 4th Avenue North. It is the lovely ivory and kind of hunter green cinder block long building in the back of that parking lot. The building serves a functional purpose, not an aesthetic purpose, and that was the intent of it, was to have a place to store the equipment, so it is a necessity. However, we saw this as an opportunity to really activate that space, to be something that draws people into the downtown, and it's not just a big white square anymore, or rectangle, excuse me.
Thank you, and we do have one public comment card before we get a motion on this item. Mr. Marsh, he should not be unfamiliar to you all, so Mr. Secretary.
Over here, I can share.
And I'll have one more.
There you go.
Ken Marsh, 2011 Gale Avenue. I'm opposed to the expense of this $30,000. Probably nobody in the community wants to see our downtown flourish more than I do. But I think even though it's only $30,000 in a nominal amount, I think it's a waste. And the reason I think it's a waste is because in the workshop that you all just had with the CRA, we were talking about a parking strategy. And in that parking strategy, the number one place that we would build a parking garage or facility would be the Cape area. And no, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Probably 5 to 7 years makes sense. The more we improve the downtown, the faster we will need that garage. We're taking away parking as we have dining, outdoor dining. We'll probably take away more on-street parking when we change our codes and either relax or eliminate the requirements for parking for businesses wanting to relocate downtown. So the parking garage is going to come. So we're going to basically have a shelf life of around 5 to 7 years for this mural. And I think $30,000, although a small amount of money, could be used better. Let's put it towards the Latham Park activation park area project, maybe the urban trails downtown, maybe some of the landscaping there, or give some of the downtown Cape Police some bonuses. But no, $30,000 for this, I think we're drawing people in only to pull them away once we put a garage there. And I think that looks bad on you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Can we get a motion?
I move that we approve the purchase and installation of a mural on the downtown Cape Building at 218 4th Avenue North by C. Stanley Creative for an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussions by council? Mr. Nichols.
First of all, just to reply to that, I think if a parking garage ever goes there, that the thought was that the building would be incorporated into the parking lot. So it doesn't necessarily, us potentially putting a parking garage there does not mean that building will be torn down. Secondly, I was hoping, I saw that there was about 30 applicants that applied. Is there a chance that at some point in time I can get a list of the candidates and also what the selection criteria was?
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Golding. Taylor, are we getting submissions from local artists?
We did.
Okay. And I guess this is where Mr. Nichols was going. Is there any priority placed on local artists as far as like when the rankings are done and that sort of thing?
So as far as scoring them, no, there is not. And that was a conscious decision made. When you put this call out, we could select to do regionally, nationally, worldwide, internationally. And something the committee, when they were going back and forth on how they were going to rank these, they did not want to have an extra weighted category of, okay, this person is within Duval County, but maybe this person is in Flagler County, so not too far from us, and this is a far better mural, but because this person was local, it weighted higher, and that was quite a topic of discussion for a while, but at this time, they do not weight based on the location of the artist.
Okay. I do like to support local artists, but I also defer to the committee because there are experts. but did want to ask about that. And another question is, what is required to maintain this public art? Is there something that will be done to maintain it down the road?
Yes, so we are requiring that they use materials that are obviously going to sustain the elements here, so rain, wind, the salt air. They also have to use a UV coating protectant over the paint that will protect it. And then in the contract with the artist, we're requiring for a year after the mural is done that the artist, as a part of their fee, has to come back to make any adjustments, freshen up any of the paint. And then we also will be budgeting for maintenance of future murals and future art pieces. And so kind of working with the artist and working with the committee to figure out, exactly what that cost is going to look like on an annual basis to maintain it long term.
And is the thought that maybe we would we would have a lifetime, like for so many years, the artwork would be on the wall there,
Right.
and then we would refresh it with something totally new? I mean, is that?
That's kind of where I think that's the
committee is
direction they're going, yeah. Because murals, again, at the end of the day, they're only going to have a shelf life that's so long. That's just the reality, especially when you're in the harsh elements of the sunlight and just the conditions here with the salt air. So yes, I would think a lot of times what we've seen 5 to 7 years is about the lifespan of a mural, and then we would be able to put out a new call and refresh the space.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
Ms. Taylor, is there a way to break down the $30,000?
There is. I am not the one to do it. It'll be the artist and the committee. The $30,000, when we went through and budgeted these, we talked with the Cultural Council, and then we talked with various platforms. Cafe is the one that we actually used, but how they priced out murals, and we wanted to be competitive with the budget that we were allocating. We didn't want to under budget this, and we also didn't want to over budget. So basically, we just took the square footage of the space they were going to be painting and kind of averaged out the average cost of what murals were going for in our kind of region and our geographic area. And they all kind of fell anywhere from $20 to like $30 a square foot, and this prices out to like right around $23, $24 a square foot at $30,000. And that's how these are priced. Now, when the itemized comes in, that comes in on the back end. The artist will tell us, this is how much my materials were, this was my labor charge, this was the maintenance fee, this was, travel rate, whatever it is that we end up charging. But it's priced based on the actual square footage of what the piece is going to be.
Now, on the committee, you said it was a conscious decision to go with this individual, or C. Stanley Creative from Orlando. Was it like a vote? Was it like a 5-1 vote, or can you
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous?
Yeah, and so, again, this is obviously the first one that we've done. So we utilized Cafe, which is a platform, it's called for injury. That came at the recommendation of several committee members, as well as the Cultural Council. Everyone said it was a great program, and it's worked really well. What that did with the applicants is it gave an even playing field. Everybody had to submit the exact same requirements, the exact same criteria, so it didn't give anybody one leg over another. And then we went and pulled all of the applicants that completed the application and submitted the necessary documents and made a presentation, slideshow, and sat and went through 2 hours every slide. There was 31 applicants, and then the committee narrowed that down to, I believe, 7. And then everybody talked through those top 7, and then they narrowed that down to 5, and then from 5 they got to 3. We then sent out Zoom interviews to the final 3. One, unfortunately, did not show up, and then they interviewed 2 of the final 3. 2 of the finalists were Florida natives, one was in Texas, and then they ultimately decided to go with Mr. Christian Stanley.
During this process, were they coming back with how much they were going to charge if they were selected?
No, and based off, again, kind of what we learned through this, is that's not really how the procurement of these pieces work. You set an overall budget, and then that's what the artist gets. So it's $28,000, but it's not. But if that was what materials would be, then this artist stands to make a profit of the $2,000. So when you're pricing these out, you're not saying, okay, we're going to give you $30,000, but it only actually costs you $10,000, so that's all you're getting. Unfortunately, this is a little different. So that $30,000 is the cap. That's the end all be all. Again, if it costs them almost $30,000 in materials, and they don't stand to make a profit. So, and the artists have to know that when they're applying for these going into that, so they can budget all the expenses associated with doing this. Mr. Nichols, revisit?
Thank you. The Public Art Advisory Committee, PAAC, that was a part of the selection committee, who is that mainly made up of? Is there a local artist included in that? Is there, and then also, is there anybody from outside of the area on that?
Yes, to all of the
PAAC?
above. So when we opened that, because that committee has no governing authority, we were able to open it more regionally. So we have got the former chair of MOGA. We have got someone who works in art and creative branding in a marketing firm. We have got an artist and former teacher of art at Fletcher for 30 years, I believe. We have got somebody that does all of the LED lighting work and does all of the fabrication for deck and chairs. And so he brings a really unique technical aspect that the other folks necessarily don't. And then we actually have somebody that was involved and was the one who spearheaded the purchase of the Dolphin and the Boy.
Okay, so, oh gosh, what was my point? Sorry. It's been a
That's
long-
okay.
been a long day. So there's a good artistic compilation of people in this mix.
Yeah, and I think what's really unique about the art committee is they're not all from the same background. They all bring a different level of expertise when it comes to this process. You know, again, the CRA, none of us, no one on the committee has a background in art, and then myself, the planning director, neither of us certainly have expertise in this, so we really relied heavily on making sure we had a really vast representation of art professionals.
And the selection was unanimous.
100% unanimous.
This is something that's been talked about for quite some time within the CRA, and I'm really glad to see this step of not only forming the Public Art Committee, but actually having them sink their teeth into their first project. And I think that they, and it sounds like our staff, learned a lot through it, and I appreciate you seeking the resources such as the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville, because they deal with art in public places downtown all the time. It may feel like a lot of money, but people just have an idea that artists are sitting around waiting for a canvas to paint on, and the reality is it's their livelihood. And for a building that size, and maybe you'll drive by it on your way out of here tonight, that's a huge canvas, and that's a lot of paint, that's a lot of work. I think it looks beautiful from the renderings, and I love that there's the little Instagram wall there on the end with the sea turtle. I think that's going to be a big hit. And anybody who sees that building now, just if you have any inkling of artistic vision, it does look like a canvas ready to be painted on. So I think this was a great first project for them to go through, and hopefully between this and there's a lot of private art happening as well. So we're seeing more and more murals pop up around our community, and I think it gives us a really a cool vibe. Not to overuse the word, but I'm glad to see us investing in this. And this is from the key, and we're not taking questions from the audience.
I just want to know where the exact location of the mural is.
If you could just, we'll go through that. We did cover that earlier. It's at the Cape parking lot at 2nd Avenue and 4th Street North. You're welcome. But no more from you, sir, from the audience, please. And this is through our Community Redevelopment Agency funding. So this is downtown tax increment funds, just to be clear on where this funding is coming from. Any other questions from council? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Golding? Yes. Councilmember Horn?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Mesa?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Item B, looks like Mr. Stefopoulos.
Mayor and council, this is basically an extension of an agreement that we've had in the past, over the past several years, with the Duval County Property Appraiser's Office and the tax collector. That entity uses a third party to do forensic audits of different people's tax claims, so to speak. And by using a third party auditor, if they find things that are at issue, the city gets a portion of the fund, the third party gets a fund. The property appraiser contacted us to let us know that the latest extension of that agreement had expired. They're looking to enter into a new agreement. They're asking for the city of Jacks Beach to sign off on the appropriate documents to re-enter into this agreement. And our recommendation is approval. If you have any questions, we're here to answer.
Thank you. And motion?
I move that we approve an agreement with the Duval County Property Appraiser and Duval County Tax Collector for the use of property tax collections to fund business personal property tax audit services and authorize the mayor and city manager to execute the same.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Horn.
A couple of things. First of all, that the contract there, it says 2022, so that's incorrect. Can you tell me how many audits this has, how many have been performed in the last, so it was 2019 to 2023, so 4 years. How many citizens of Jacksonville Beach were audited through this process?
I do not have that answer, and I don't believe our CFO is here. I don't have that number. The only thing I can tell you is under the financial impact, we've seen the personal property tax revenues increase by an average of $30,000 per year based on the audits performed.
Okay, so my thoughts on that are $30,000 a year to have us authorize a group of people to go out and do audits on our citizens, I think is, I'm very reluctant to support approving something where we're going to go out and audit the citizens for $30,000 a year. I live in Jacks Beach, and I'm not worried about getting audited. I got a tax guy does all my stuff, but I just think in general, it's I have difficulty with this.
Ms. Golding?
Mr. Horn, I would just add that I've talked to the property appraiser's office several times, and a lot of the violations, or whatever you want to call it, they're finding are vacation rentals. So there are people who have a vacation rental, and they've got a homestead exemption on it, and they're getting the benefit of that homestead exemption. And I'm happy to make sure that that gets corrected, and that's part of what happens with this audit process.
Mr. Sefopoulos?
Just to clarify for council that this particular agreement is not necessarily related to the homestead declarations, it's related to personal property taxes for this one in particular.
Mr. Horn?
Again, I'm sure that there, if we said, we all said, we say no, and we vote this down right now, there are still processes in place to go out and audit citizens if there are irregularities that somebody finds, or there are things out there. And I am, again, reluctant to authorize or, I guess authorize somebody to go out and audit the citizens of Jacks Beach.
Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Horn?
No.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. The next item is our first resolution, and that is being presented by Mr. Fatidis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Fatidis, Parks and Recreation. This item tonight, we're asking Council to approve an application for an honorary street name. The applicant is Ms. Roseanne Tyler, who's with us in the audience tonight. She's applying on behalf of her father, Michael Bondanza, who was a decorated Army veteran for World War II. I think he had the Purple Heart and was part of the Normandy invasion. He was also president of the Beaches Fine Arts Guild. We find the application meets all of our policy criteria and recommend that council will approve it. Mr. Bondanza lived, I think, on Barbara Lane for most of his life here in Jacks Beach, and if you approve it, the sign will go on the corner of 10th Street North and Barbara Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Fatidis. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution?
A resolution of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, approving an application and honorary street name designation sign location for an honoree under the honorary street name designation policy, authorizing sign installation, providing for adoption of recitals, repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions and council decisions, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. And a motion?
I move that we adopt Resolution 2139, 2023, approving the honorary street name designation application for honoree Michael A. Bondanza.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Golding?
I would just say to Mr. Bondanza's family, I thank him for his service to our country. I drive down 10th Street and I pass Barber Lane all the time because that's in my district, and I'll be honored to approve this tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Golding. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Jansen,
Yes.
Councilmember Meza,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton,
Yes.
Councilmember Golding,
Yes.
Councilmember Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, Resolution B. Ms. Robinson?
Yes, ma'am. Members of council, I'm pleased to present the legislative policy manual before you tonight for approval. We have been discussing this over several briefings at this point, but this is a compilation of rules and procedures. These are designed to govern the operations of city council. It is hopefully a primary source of information for anyone who does business with the city, to know what to expect when they come to the city council meetings, public hearings, and also to understand how the council work within the context of city government. As you can see from the resolution, this has been a project that's been under construction since about 2019. We believe it's now ready for final consideration and approval, and I am recommending approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Before we get started on this item, Mr. Tipton, I'm very sorry, I just saw your card about Resolution A. Did you still want to address the council?
Just for a moment.
Okay, just, sorry guys, bear with me, we've got a lot of different stacks up here.
My name is John Tipton, I reside at 503 6th Street, North Jacksonville Beach, Florida. In no way what I'm going to say should detract from the fact that you want to name somebody, name a street for one of our World War II veterans. We have lost a lot of our World War II veterans, but there are also a lot of us who have served. I served a couple of years in the combat zone, so I had no idea what those people were up with for 4 years. But if we're going to start naming streets here in Jacksonville Beach, I have a feeling that maybe one of the things we ought to do is go back and look at names for people who have done an enormous amount for Jacksonville Beach itself, or for the whole town. I mean, I'd start with people like Wendy Sutton, people like that. Some of y'all don't even know Wendy, but anyhow, for those of us that do, we might want to go back and start thinking about giving the names, if you're going to do this, find the names of the people who have done an awful lot for the beach itself, as well as veterans. Because there are an awful lot of veterans here at the beach, and I'm sure there are probably a bunch of World War II veterans also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tipton. Okay, back to the resolution at hand. Madam Clerk, will you read the resolution by title, please?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, establishing and adopting a legislative policies manual, providing for adoption of recitals, repeal of conflicting resolutions and city council decisions, administrative assignment and authorization, severability, and an effective date.
And a motion?
I move that we adopt Resolution 2141, 2023, adopting the legislative policies manual.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments by council? Ms. Golding.
I just want to thank Ms. Robinson for your work on this, and I've asked her several questions, and she was very helpful in clarifying all of my questions. I know that there will be some changes in the way that we conduct our meetings going forward if this is approved. So I don't think we'll need any kind of training because it's just a few things, but definitely something we'll just have to get used to. But one question I did want to ask is, if this is approved tonight, where will this legislative policy manual live so that the public would have access to this information?
Well, I think we have a place for the policy manual right now through the clerk's office. I will recommend that we have it linked up through several web pages on the city's website. Primary being the council's webpage should have it. The city attorney's office should have it, as well as the city clerk. So those would be my 3 recommendations.
Thank you.
Be just one of the many fun things you can learn about at the Citizen Information Academy. No? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Horn?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries, and thank you, Ms. Robinson, for picking that one up in motion from your predecessor. We appreciate you seeing that one through. Okay, moving on to ordinances. Let me reshuffle my paper. Do we want to hear from Commander Bingham first? We do. It was a rhetorical question.
Good evening. I like this setup. We want to keep this permanent. I'm sure he doesn't like it. Thomas Bingham, Services Division Commander for the Police Department. I'm here to present ordinance 2023-8194. This is an amendment to section 3161 currently in the Code of Ordinances for the paid parking, and it's restructured to allow for more simplified language and to give council the authority to establish fees, locations, etc., instead of being codified in the amendment and having to go, instead of being codified in the ordinance and having to go through the amendment process. And I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commander Bingham. Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title, please?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, amending Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Article 3, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Division 3, Parking Regulations, Section 31-61, Paid Parking Program, providing for legislative findings, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. This ordinance is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its first reading. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2023-8194. I have one speaker card on this item, Mr. Mike Stang.
No, that was supposed to be for the next one.
Okie dokie. I have no speaker card on this item. Would anybody like to speak in favor of or against the ordinance? Seeing none? Oh, come on, Gary. Did you fill out a card?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You gotta go
I'm sorry.
stand next to the officer there.
I'm so used to that.
Good evening, Gary Paytown, 725 Bonaire Circle, Jacks Beach. Just one point for consideration for the council. In looking at 7th Avenue North from 2nd Street to the end zone, I would think that that's one area that you ought to also consider for paid parking, mainly because of the hotels in that location. A lot of that parking is used by the residents or the people staying at the hotels, rather than them being available for residents to use for parking. They'll use those parking spaces to avoid having to valet their cars in the hotel. So I think 7th Avenue North in particular is one area that the council ought to take a look at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Paytel. Now I will close the public hearing and request a motion for adoption.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2023-8194 on the first reading, amending City Code of Ordinances, Section 3161, paid parking program, and schedule a second reading for March 20th, 2023.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Mr. Mesa.
Question. I don't know if you are able to answer, or Ms. Heather, I know Taylor's gone. I know the last council meeting, when we had approved the contract, I talked about the kiosks and the Ritz parking lot, just the surrounding area is very, it's in dismay, it just looks horrible. Is there any word on how, if it's going to be?
Yes. Speaking with SB Plus, who was the previous, will be the next contract, they were facing some supply chain issues as far as getting those ordered. From my understanding, that they should be in soon, but paid parking will be starting soon, so it will go into effect probably within the next couple of weeks. We'll be able to cover those up, not in use.
Okay.
Mr. Horn.
So we were going, you said this is going to go into effect, what are the dates on this again, the paid parking?
Paid parking is scheduled to begin on the 17th, Friday the 17th, for the 4 established lots that were in use in the previous contract.
Of March?
Yes, sir.
So 11 days from today. My concern, my question is, my concern and my question is, because this says that, well, there are no fees associated with this, there's nothing documented, everything's lined through, so it says it's going to be determined by the council, and so that gives us 11 days to do said action. Just kind of throwing that out there.
All the fees are established, all the fees are established in the current contract, the current 4-year contract with SB Plus.
Thank you.
Mr. Sifopoulos.
Yes, just to reiterate for council, one of the things that we had identified was that the old language of the ordinance specifically called out the locations that the parking fees would be assessed. Last year, we received direction from council, I should say, a year and a half ago, to expand the parking to include the 6th end zone, 6th, and the parking lot behind the town center. However, the ordinance was not modified to accommodate those 3 particular areas. So by the proposed changes that we have in front of you tonight, basically, you give us direction of where you want the parking program, which in this case will include those 3 lots, and this change will allow that to happen. So to answer your question, Mr. Horn, on March 17th, the paid parking program goes into effect for all the existing locations except those 3. Those 3 will not go into effect until after the second reading of this ordinance, which will effectively be the weekend after that. So the 20th will be the second reading. It will be effective on the 21st, but that's a Tuesday, so it really won't start up until several days later that upcoming weekend for those 3 spots.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Okay.
See no other questions, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
Yes.
Councilmember Horn?
Yes.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our next ordinance, Ms. Ireland.
Come on up.
This is fun, I like this. Good evening, Mayor and Council, Heather Ireland, Planning and Development Department. On February 6th, you all considered an ordinance to amend the charter for height in the downtown Central Business District. That was deferred after much discussion to the March 20th meeting. The very following week, at a briefing on February 13th, you discussed staff developing an alternative ordinance for a charter amendment that would just be focused on, and you can see it on the screen up there, the parking lot that is just adjacent to the south of Latham Plaza. So staff with legal assistance has prepared this ordinance for your consideration that would put a charter amendment on the ballot for May of 23 to offer an additional 20 feet only on this city-owned property in the downtown.
Thank you, Ms. Ireland. I should have been getting this paper ready while you were speaking. Madam Clerk, will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Jacksonville Beach a proposed amendment to the charter of the City of Jacksonville Beach, providing a ballot title, summary, and text for the proposed amendment, providing directions to the city clerk, providing for severability, an effective date for approved amendments, and an effective date for the ordinance.
Thank you. This ordinance is before the council for a public hearing and consideration on its first reading. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2023-8195. We have quite a few speaker cards, so I'm going to again ask for please no applause in between, and if you can keep your comments sharp and to the point. We do have a second opportunity. If this passes tonight, we'll have a second reading in 2 weeks on March 20th. I also, just to make sure there's no confusion, if this passes City Council, it would go on the ballot to a vote of the electorate, and it would only be for this property. So this is a city-owned property that we are already planning on redeveloping, but this would allow for an extra 20 feet of height incentive to be added into the request for proposal. So just, again, this is the only property, and it would have to go before the voters. No other properties would be subject to this unless they subsequently went before the voters. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Mike, you definitely wrote 8194 on here, but I'm going to go ahead and call you during this one. Mike Stang?
I also put, I don't need to speak today.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry. They didn't highlight that.
And I tried to correct it.
Okay, you were opposed to the agenda item, does not wish to speak. Roger Whiting? Oh, you don't want to, oh, this is, okay. You guys can you please start highlighting? Roger Whiting is opposed, but does not wish to speak. Mary Phillips is opposed. I feel like she does want to speak. No? Okay.
Mary Phillips, 934 10th Street North, Jacksonville Beach, Florida. I'm against this ordinance, and I'm also pretty sure that each of you has already made up your mind, and no matter what the citizens say at this meeting, I don't think it'll make a difference. That's okay, because ultimately, as you just said, it will have to go to the voters, and they will speak when they vote in May. But I don't think a 5-story mixed-use parking garage is the answer to the city's downtown parking needs. It will only encourage more people to park downtown, resulting in the exact same parking issues we currently have. It won't fix anything in the commercial parking problems. It won't fix the residential problems, unless, of course, visitors park in that garage and then take that city bus down to the overdeveloped neighborhoods where parking is already a nightmare. This is pretty much sick on a pig. You still have the pig. If we don't fix our comprehensive plan, the land development code, we will continue to have problems with parking because we're overdeveloping Jacksonville Beach. In the last several weeks, you guys have heard from dozens of citizens. Some of you have been on city boards and in this council stretching back 10 years. Why have we been so slow to fix the root problem? We can't ordinance our way out of this. We need to fix the comprehensive plan and the land development code and stop overdeveloping the city. It's been talked about for years, nothing has changed. We're told that an update process is in the works. Please, when you leave this meeting, start scheduling the meetings for citizens to come in and look at that update process. Make sure that everybody has an opportunity to do that, and do that by scheduling multiple meetings at a variety of times so all citizens can get to them. I'm asking you to stop dragging your feet, give the citizens tools they need to protect their established neighborhoods from greedy developers, and save the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. I'll go through a couple of cards that do not wish to address the council. Ken Marsh is in support of this agenda item. Luann Lentz does not wish to speak but is opposed. Krista Murphy does not wish to speak but is opposed. John Tipton does wish to address the council. Come on up, John.
John Tipton, 546th Street North, Jacksonville Beach. There is no way that y'all don't understand that the large majority of the residents, not the investors, the residents of Jacksonville Beach do not want anything higher than 35 foot. We made that really clear in 2004, And if we have to start getting out on the street with signs, we'll do it again. 35 foot is what we voted for, and I don't care if we have to put it before the vote again. 35 foot is what the residents of Jacksonville Beach, the people who pay the taxes here, not the investors, not the people that are going to come in and build something and disappear. Those of us that lived here our whole lives, who pay the taxes every year, year in and year out, have told every one of the bodies that sit in the chairs where y'all are sitting right now that 35 foot is as high as we want a building. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's city property or private property. I'm not sure there's any way to make it any clearer than that. I'm opposed to this. I don't, if you're going to build a parking garage there, fine, build a 35-foot parking garage. I would have put it on 2nd Street where the Cape building is, but that's just my opinion. I think we should have done that to begin with. If you're going to put the building there, build it to 35 foot, we won't have any weather, we won't, it's not going to be an issue. If you put this on the ballot, it's going to become an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tipton. Bobby Walton?
Okay. Can I have my 15 seconds back, because I didn't even get started talking?
Go ahead.
This is
Go ahead, please
It's
start.
always been-
Start with your name and address.
Okay.
Thank you.
Am I heard? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Bobby Walton. I live on 11th Avenue South, 100 block. I've been living here for 16 years. I paid $1 million for my house, and I moved here when the beach was a beach. It was not an intense place. And every year since I got here, I moved from Atlanta after 30 years of being in Atlanta. It became so intense nobody wanted to live there, but there's still now 6 million people there. I'm here in Jacksonville Beach. Jacksonville Beach is about the same size population as Ponte Vedra Beach, Neptune Beach, and Atlantic Beach. But for some reason, Jacksonville Beach has gone insane trying to develop this place with intensity and too much concrete. We're going between 5th Avenue and the ocean. You can look at that. There is no dirt. No wonder we're the only community here that's having to spend millions, and the government's spending millions, infrastructure to do drainage to get the water out of here. That's not happening in Atlantic Beach. It's not happening in Ponte Vedra. It's not happening in South Jacks Beach. It's not happening in Neptune Beach. We're concreting the whole daggone place and making it too intense. We gotta stop. It's not working. It's not working. The traffic has increased quadruple in the last 10 years, and the streets are still the same size. We're over-intensifying Jacksonville Beach. Why doesn't Neptune Beach, all these other 3 cities, why don't they go crazy trying to get more people come? They don't want it. We've got enough infrastructure, commercial development, and whatever here. The only reason we need more parking is because we're drawing people more to Jack's Beach. I don't see them building the parking garages down here in Neptune Beach. I just don't understand. We must have some sense here and withdraw this intent to intensify Jacksonville Beach like it's downtown Jacksonville. We're pretty soon, well, I even say right now, we have more concrete in Little Jacksonville Beach from 5th to the ocean than downtown Jacksonville has concrete. And then these other lots, are they going to be extended? Pier lot, this lot, beach lot, are they going to have high-rise coming on those? Pretty soon people won't even be able to walk down the street because there's too many people. It's very disappointing, upsetting, and I don't see the community of the impression that this needs to be done. I don't know whether it's development or political or circumstantial, I don't know, but I don't see a whole lot of people jumping up and down and say how wonderful it is for us to be building and covering every square inch of dirt with concrete. I hope that you realize that this is not where the citizens, just like that gentleman before me, it's not where we want to go.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
thank you
Walton.
very much.
Casey Braun. Mr. Walton, if you could just move out of the way for Mr.
Oh, I'm
Braun to
sorry.
speak. The clerk will be available after the meeting with any
I just want to
questions.
ask her a question.
We're just trying to keep the meeting moving.
Oh, wow. I feel like I'm in front of the Supreme Court rather than the city meeting.
I'm not sure.
Supreme
Mr.
Court.
Braun, name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Casey Braun, 804 13th Avenue North, Jacksonville Beach. And many years ago, when there was cruising down First Street, and we couldn't stop it, but Neptune Beach figured out how to do it. The day we said we couldn't do it, they put up the palm trees and said, okay. But at that time, I had thought that we should have pursued the direction that St. Augustine is, a foot traffic only development of our beach. If we had a foot traffic only commercial area at the beach, we would be hugely known and very popular. I mean, St. Augustine has nothing, and they're still very successful with their pedestrian-only development. With a beach there, and the boardwalk, and the walk along the beach, and you could walk the beach, and you could go and shop in a pedestrian-only area, we could have been very successful. So we don't need to talk about 55-foot buildings. Nobody wants it. The conditions for zoning alternatives don't work. We just don't need to have this. The people won't vote for it. So we need to spend the time talking about a different direction for development that could be very successful, that we could be very proud of. Because there are different things. Not everything's a tuxedo. So I think that we should reorient the direction that we're discussing and develop the plan, but the plan that everybody looks at and just can't wait to go to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Kathy Hall.
Good job.
Kathy Hall, 1639 6th Street South, Jacks Beach. I'm opposed to the 55 foot. I'm not quite sure where that number came from, frankly, but I will find out, because I will get more involved. But last year, I did come to one of the public meetings when they were talking about downtown redevelopment. The consultants you had in that were doing the surveys, asking for questions. I even went home and filled out the survey online for them. And at the time, I said, redoing Latham Plaza. Why does every city council board think they have to redo Latham Plaza? You know, it was like 2 new council people, they want to redo it again. Okay, then, in the last 2 weeks, I've been flipping through the old documents, okay, from the city council. And I came across a downtown vision redevelopment plan for Jacksonville Beach. This was put out by Glatman, Jackson, Kircher, and Anglin. And I'm sure you're probably aware of this. This was actually in August of 2007. And I looked at this and thought, wow, that's Latham Plaza. That looks really neat. And I'm very serious about this. It looks really neat. And I looked at it, and the Latham parking lot is developed, and I thought, that looks like a really nice place. I would like to see that there. And then I also noticed, though, that the parking lot had 3 stories to it. It did not have 5. Okay? If you want a picture of this, I'm happy you can pass it around. But I think this looks wonderful. But I think 5 stories there is going to look terrible. And not only that, you've got a wind tunnel going between our town center now and 5 stories going through, coming right off the ocean. And it's going to come right in the front door of City Hall. So I really hope you will reconsider this. Building something in the parking lot, I think, and including parking is wonderful, okay, and including retail in it. And I think you need to go back to 2007 and revisit whoever these consultants were that put this little vision here, because it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Michelle Tipton.
Good, great job.
Good evening, Michelle Tipton, address is 2333 Azalea Drive. I came here in regards to the 35-foot height amendment, and there's a very old adage of size matters. And I'm here tonight because success is not determined by size. We can hop on our bikes, ride down to Neptune Beach, Atlantic Beach, and there is a thriving area of shops, boutiques, restaurants. They're all under 35 feet. I was there yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Thriving area, people on bikes, riding, it doesn't have to be over 35 feet. There can be success at the current charter. Right here in Jacksonville Beach, you go down a couple of blocks, Angie Subs. Ed doesn't have to go up 55 feet. He doesn't even need a new building. You can have success in the size of the buildings that are established. The strip center just past that on the boulevard. There are multiple new restaurants in there. Abstract, Cuban Bistro, Engine 15, Lone Wolf. If you go by there in the evenings, these restaurants are doing phenomenal. It's a thriving area, and they're all under the current numbers. We do not have to have the height to be successful in Jacksonville Beach. And I have to tell you, I commend the group that put together the verbiage in the city charter amendment 20 years ago. Because if they wouldn't have written it the way that they did, Jacksonville Beach would be looking completely different than it is, because it would have been etched away and etched away and etched away, exactly like what you're doing right here. And I find it very curious how quickly this has changed, and all of a sudden, we're just talking about this parking lot. We don't need anything else. You're opening the door for trouble, because first it's going to be this parking lot, and then it's going to be this, and then it's going to be this. The reason the charter was written the way that it is so that it's in stone, so that city council members that have received donations from big developers aren't impartial on their votes. The people wanted, over 70% of them wanted a 35-foot height amendment. It's frustrating to me that you're going to try and sneak this in on the May ballot. We all know historically, probably 15 to 20% of people vote on these non-larger elections, and that's why it's being sneaked in on this May ballot. I really, really struggle with you all doing that, and I find that to be a very low lack of integrity to try and put that in on May. I'm guessing that you all are thinking, if we slide this in May, there's only 15% that come and vote, maybe we'll win it then, because 75% of the general public does not want this. And I think you need to listen to who you're representing.
Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Daryl Shields.
Good job.
Darrell Shields, 315 18th Street North, Jacksonville Beach, for 56 years. I will be brief. First of all, thank you for your service on the council. With this proposed ordinance, I think we have two issues. The first is height. You are proposing 55 feet for this development. In 2004, the citizens voted 3-1 for the 35-foot amendment against the city's then council's amendment to keep the height as it was. That was a very significant vote. I think the majority of citizens still like 35 feet regardless of where it is. The second issue involves the city council asking the citizens to cede their right to vote on basically how this property is going to be used. Thusly, 4 of you could make the decision about what would happen to this city property. The plans for this proposal, for this proposed use, lack details. What would it look like? How long would it take to do? How would this be good for Jacksonville Beach?
In conclusion, I do not believe giving four of you the right to make this decision about the city property is a good idea, and asking the citizens to give up their right to vote on the final plans seems a little undemocratic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Brenda Shields.
I've lived here an awful long time, I've seen it all. I've seen, the crab pot, and I've seen the big, huge building they had up there, and the band shell. I've seen all the changes that have come and gone, but I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I would like to thank you for your service as well, and I'd like to thank especially Sandy, who gave me all the information about all the videos and audios and YouTubes and things that I needed to find out about what was going on, because I wasn't expecting to have to come back here until March 30th, or March 20th, because that was when the other one was deferred to that we spoke on last time. But anyway, I'm here, and I'm going to just tell you what I think. I'll read it to you so it'll be shorter. The council voted to defer the proposed charter amendment to increase the height in the CBD district until March the 20th, and that's when I was hoping I wouldn't have to show up till anything after that. This site-specific charter amendment allowing height up to 55 feet in the Latham Plaza parking lot is an interesting late development in the height issue. This is being proposed to solicit development on the Latham Plaza parking lot. Was there a public notice about the ordinance? I did not see it in the Beaches Leader. So I don't know if there was or not. I didn't see one, and I usually really look for things like that. Listening to the audio of the February 13th City Council briefing, the council was offered this site-specific change to be brought before the council on March the 6th today, with second readings on March the 20th. It was suggested that this would be an opportunity to move forward for some type of height increase in the downtown, which could possibly be a showcase for a lot of different incentives proposed for development. That was their words, actually. There have been development plans for Latham Plaza since the Gladdings Jackson study, and shops with outdoor dining, rooftop areas were an attractive part of them, all under 35 feet. I agree with the other woman who spoke that said that was a nice thing. And I looked it up again, and it's really beautiful. This late change does not give citizens enough time to become aware and informed of the consequences of this change. I personally cannot envision a 55-foot parking garage or a row of 55-foot buildings in the area. For a decision so monumental for Jacksonville Beach citizens, I believe it would be best to delay voting on this today until more specificity is available. My husband wrote that, that's my favorite. We have been to several workshops over the years discussing raising the height limit to 55 feet with beautiful pictures showing what it would ideally look like. They did not convince most of those in attendance that it was a good idea. I hope all residents in Jacksonville Beach, both new and old, will consider the consequences of allowing any more areas in Jacksonville Beach to be developed over 35 feet. Once you are on a slippery slope, you may not be able to stop the slide. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. We have two additional speaker cards. Julia T. Sams is I posted location and height due to it being an eyesore, not an image indicative of what we want the beach to symbolize as you enter the heart of our city. She is opposed to the agenda item. And Rhonda Steinke McDonald does not wish to address the council, but is also opposed to the agenda item. And that is the last of our speaker cards. Is there any, did I miss anybody? Okay, Mr. Marsh, come on up. I know I saw your speaker card, but you didn't want to talk.
I probably checked the wrong thing.
Oh, okay. You definitely checked, I do not wish.
Ken Marsh, 2011 Gale Avenue. I do see some specifics where going over 35 feet makes sense. I can see that. But certainly tonight you have heard a level of distrust over development in this community. And there's a reason for that. You've heard it over and over again in many council meetings, and yet we still get overdevelopment. And I'm pretty familiar with downtown. What I think we see downtown is not a lot of traffic. Monday through Friday, during the daylight hours, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. We need to activate that area. So this is where I can see something greater than 35 foot may make sense, but to what somebody pointed out here, show us what you're thinking about, because I'll tell you, Ms. Hall said it, in the 2007 plan, it called for restaurants, shops, offices, and dwellings, residential. It doesn't call for a town full of hotels and bars. You guys have earned this level of mistrust, you and your past councils, okay? And you're reaping it now. We need to have something from you guys that says, hey, look, we're planning to activate it. We're going to activate it with restaurants and shops and office and residence. We're not going to put hotels there. We're not going to put, believe it or not, there was never any talk of a 5-story, 55-foot garage. But because the communication plan has been so poor, the public believes that. So you guys got to do better with that. What is it that you really want to put there, and make sure you communicate it so we can understand it and digest it? Does that mean it's going to pass the sniff test with everybody? I think you can hear tonight it probably won't. But again, I feel like I think there's some options out there. I'd like to see it. I'd like to really see that you guys are committed to executing that and not putting a bunch of hotels like we've got now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Mr. Payton, oh, I'm sorry. Sir, come on up, you had your hand up at the same time as Mr. Marsh.
Good evening, council members. My name is Aaron Scott. I live 135 29th Avenue South. I really like what Mr. Marsh said about activating the downtown. I'm 29 years old. My wife and I, we've lived here all of our lives. A lot of our friends have lived here all their lives as well, but a lot of friends that we have now are moving here to the beaches. And what we hear all the time is how unique we are. They've come to Orlando before, they've been to Miami, obviously, Cocoa Beach, Daytona for the 500. That was their idea of Florida, and then they came here and they started to put roots down here, and Jacksonville Beach is now their home, and they know how special it is, just like everyone here knows how special it is. One of the main things that keeps it so special is that charter that keeps us a small city from being overdeveloped, even though people have been trying very hard lately to overdevelop, especially after COVID. Everyone wants to be in Florida now. Jax Beach was on that website article of like one of the top 10 places to move recently, and we're getting a lot of attention. A lot of people are coming here. Don't let that get to our heads, basically, and don't let it get you greedy. It's good for the pocketbooks for sure when people are coming here and developers are getting to build all this stuff, and we get new restaurants and new bars, et cetera, but increasing the height is not the answer that we as citizens and taxpayers want. What we really want, like Mr. Marsh was saying, was the activation. I don't think that a 55-foot height is going to be the key to that activation. I think trying to get something more like you see in Neptune Beach here with walking, and someone had mentioned St. Augustine earlier. I think that's great. My wife and I will blow past Jax Beach downtown and ride from all the way in South Jax Beach to Neptune Beach to go walk around there and go get food and go have a drink over there, rather than go here because of how developed it is. If we could see a little more of that local foot traffic, encouraging the bike traffic, that's what this area needs, and not, frankly, I don't think we need a parking garage at all. But since we're not talking about whether or not the parking garage is going in at all, we're talking about 55 feet. At the very least, don't change the charter, please. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Payton?
Good evening, Gary Paytow, 725 Bon Air Circle, Jax Beach. As an architect, and that's the perspective I want you to take, I've been one who's been supporting the effort to go to a 55-foot height limitation. But that's because I want to see good architecture. I want to see something that's developed that makes sense for the community, that creates spaces. And I think with a little greater height, we can do a much better job. The Element Hotel, unfortunately, is one that failed us greatly. Some of the other architecture that we have in this community, the same thing. But after looking at it for some time, and particularly with some of the more recent developments that I've seen, I guess I'm starting to fall back, and I feel that 35 feet is something that we can work with. And the reason that I say that is take a look at Town Center. Just about all of you walked that building with me when it was presented to us by the developer. What a unique structure, what a unique opportunity that creates in the way of space, and how it starts to frame Latham Plaza. On top of that, if you go up into Neptune Beach and you take a look at the new building that's done on 3rd Street, just south of Atlantic, it's an office building, very nice architecture, and it works very well at a 35-foot height limitation. From my perspective, please don't parcel this out where we're doing Latham Plaza 55 feet, but yet everything else stays at 35 feet. Let's look at it as a whole concept. And as a concept, do we stay at 35 or do we allow things to go, have the opportunity to go up to 55? Personally, I'd like to see this decision made one way or another quickly so that we can move forward with some of these projects that we've got on our plate. And again, I'm starting to feel with good architecture, with good architects, you can create spaces and opportunities that would be very unique to this community. But it will mean a lot of hard work on everybody's part, and not just accepting what the developer or what the architect is bringing to the table, but pushing the envelope. Push it hard, and you'll get what you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paytal. We're still not applauding. Thank you. Anybody else?
Good job.
Go ahead. Let's just start with your name and address.
Sure. My name is Barbara McCune. My address is 616 Pioneer Circle, Jacks Beach. I initially didn't intend to speak, but I am opposed to raising the height limit. I think there is so much that could still be done within 35 feet. And just by way of my background, I was director of development of another community that was dealing a great deal with growth pressures, development pressures. And I think that, to kind of piggyback on what Gary just said, there are opportunities to, first of all, create architectural standards for within certain districts, within your business district. Secondly, there are additional opportunities to create a longer, broader, larger vision of what you want to be your economic engine, if you will, in this community. In saying that, I have to agree with some of the earlier speakers that you can't piecemeal. This has to be a bigger vision, a really full development plan. You've got a good basic charter, you need a better master plan in order to bring true economic growth that's acceptable to your citizens. Most of this community is residential, and I think the residents have deep roots, strong feelings, and they want to see this community succeed. They don't want to hold it back, but they don't want to see these small incremental changes that don't seem to fit a legitimate, thoughtful, and aesthetically pleasing growth plan. Thank you for the opportunity to address this esteemed council, and thank you for all your work in bringing so much good to our community.
Thank you, Ms. McCune. Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah.
Public hearing. Oh, Ms. Dumont?
Almost fainted down. Almost.
Georgia 21507, 16th Avenue South, Jax Beach, Florida 32250. I agree with a lot of what was said here, a lot of good points from me. I'm looking at this, and I would, if this were to pass tonight, I would ask that for the second reading, that Ms. Robinson look into the legality or possible legal ramifications the city may be in by only allowing the city to go above 35 feet, and if that's going to broach lawsuits by all the other property owners in that area, considering that it's very well known that we looked at that larger one. This got pushed up very quickly for the city only, and as the mayor has noted it, so we can decide what we want there. And I don't know how legally that's going to fly, especially with our current makeup of our judicial system and what's going on in Tallahassee and some of the legislation that's being passed there that is not friendly to municipalities. I don't know if this were to pass, if that would open up the door for a lot of the other developers or property owners in the downtown area for them to say it's unfair for the city to create its own monopoly of having buildings above 35 feet. And I could see that possibly winning a lawsuit, but I'm not a lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dumont. And with that, I will close this public hearing and request a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2023-8195 on the first reading for a charter amendment to increase the building height limitation on city property, Latham Plaza parking lot, and schedule a second reading for March 20th, 2023.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Council discussion. Ms. Golding?
Well, I'll just come out of the gate by saying that if you didn't know, I was involved in the height referendum in 2004. And the reason I was involved in it was because the city was not listening to the citizens. And doing what we did, we put it in the charter because we wanted to make sure that the decision had to be made by the voters if anything were to change. I still feel that we did the right, I feel that we did the right thing on that. I want to point out that what the voters approved said that the height limit was to protect public health, safety, general welfare, and aesthetics. Nothing was said in there about economic development, but I feel that, like a lot of the people have said tonight, that height's not the issue. Our residents don't want to see increased height in our community. Our citizens are not asking for increased height in the community. We have neighbors to the north and to the south of us that have 35-foot height limits, and their commercial areas are wildly successful. I too, like the earlier gentleman, go to Neptune Beach, to the restaurants and the shopping there because it's got the vibe that I think we would like to have here in Jax Beach, but it's within 35 feet. As Ms. Tipton said, we've had some new commercial developments in Jacksonville Beach that have been within 35 feet, and those have been very successful. The town center development that Mr. Angelo is doing, as Mr. Paytow said, is a great example of what can be done with architecture within 35 feet. So I cannot support putting this on the ballot. I cannot support it because I believe that we should be trying to work, deal with the issues that are more like parking. I just don't think that height's the issue, so I will not be supporting this tonight.
Mr. Horn?
All right, thank you very much. Lots of things to unpack. There are a lot of very good options. We've seen some here at the 35-foot level, but the reality is that downtown Jacksonville Beach needs parking. We all know that if you come from another end of the beach and you try and find parking, it's an issue. I actually experienced this on Saturday when I came down, was going to meet some friends in Casa Marina, and one of the issues one of the problems that we actually have is a lot of our parking, people come to the beach, and they're still kind of hanging out at the beach, and the beach tends to be, it's getting dark, we still haven't left the beach, but then you still have people coming in for dinner. And so the idea behind increasing the height for a parking garage is tempting. It's very tempting. Having said that, Ms. Hall brought up something earlier when she talked about, obviously tonight, I don't think we've had anybody stand up and say it for increasing the height amendment. And actually, when you mentioned previously the number of emails, I was 17 to 2, 17 against and 2 for, that I received in the last several days regarding this ordinance. Ms. Dumont brought up a wonderful point, which is, again, something that makes me think, because I don't want this to be a situation where it's, do as we say, not as we do. And we set a dangerous precedent, not only for other areas. And somebody mentioned to me the other day, they said, well, there aren't that many places in Jack's Beach that can be built to 55 feet. And I said, yes, there are. Every single one of them can be built to 55 feet if you allow it. Ritas, you can have a 55-foot Ritas right over there. And so, with all those things having been said, we need parking, but I have difficulty with this one, especially considering the vote in 2004. Especially considering that we've had, and I was part of that vote in 2004 as well, on the voting side. I was part of that referendum, and that's my thoughts.
Mr. Mason?
All right. 20 years ago when I moved here, there wasn't many high-rise condos. I came back from deployment, and there were some that were being built, I think 3 or 4 at a time. And the height limit was passed and nothing else was built. There were some buildings that were grandfathered in. 20 years ago, downtown was very blighted. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, there was a cops video that surfaced. Commander Bingham, I think you were a corporal or sergeant in that video, we actually had here, along with Commander Eric Shaughnessy. And in there, there's show footage of downtown, which were very blighted. Since then, it has changed. I've had friends that have come to visit who were prior Navy, just like myself, and they loved every single bit of it. And they always made comments, please don't let it turn into Daytona Beach, don't let it turn into something else. And of course, absolutely. The gentleman brought up a good point, and it's, Ken Marsh as well, we want to activate downtown. We need to activate downtown. Yes, I am in the bar industry, but I also want to see my friends who have kids stroll down First Street, stroll down the boardwalk to go to the restaurants and shops, but they usually tend to go to Neptune Beach and Lion Beach, which is more family-friendly environment. You only have Pete's Bar and Lemon Bar, and that's about it. I keep an open mind about some of the things that we get into. Lakeland Plaza parking lot. And I actually had this question, and Ms. Dumont beat me to the point, is if we were to pass this and the voters were to say, yes, let's do this, and I'm sure you're going to be looking into it, City Attorney, is are we opening the floodgates with the rest of the property owners saying, hey, well, you did it, why can't we do it? I do believe we do have a parking issue. The last thing I want is for the parking issue to extend west of 3rd Street, as I see many people park on people's yards, even though it's a public right-of-way. And I'm hearing the residents speak on this. So, I'm going to keep an open mind, and I'm going to see what my colleagues are going to say about this project.
Mr. Nichols?
First of all, I think the residents of Jacksonville Beach should have a voice now. 20 years from the last vote was a very long time ago. There's a lot of new people here, a lot of things have changed. I don't know if would pass the referendum or not, but it's not up us here on the council that is should make the decision. I think the residents should make that decision because it's been a long time. For Mr. Marsh, that he brought up, show us, and to Gary about the aesthetics. So if this passes us and gets on the referendum and passes, it'll enter a P3, private-public partnership RFP, request for proposals that go out. They will potentially have the option of going to 55 feet. Doesn't mean they will. And what will happen is, anybody that would like to develop that, they'll put in proposals. And then it'll be reviewed by the CRA. It will be voted on by the CRA, where the public would have input. It would be voted on multiple times by the city council, so the city council would have input as well. So we may, at that point in time, it may be chosen that we don't feel that on this particular block that we don't get a proposal that's 55 that would necessarily work. For the young man, the 29-year-old, I'm sorry I forgot your name, this does come as a big group of a lot of stuff that we're doing that you brought up. We are working on the Urban Trails Project, which includes the reduction in the size of First Street to allow more bicycle pedestrian, possibly one lane, to have much more bicycle pedestrian use. My vision would be also to shut a lot of that down to vehicles, so they're not driving that area. But one of the problems with that is that you have hotels east of First Street that you would have to have access to and delivery. So I think the best would be to reduce it down to one lane, one direction on that street. Let's see, what else? The original referendum that went out that Sandy helped with Beaches Watch, that did put the 35-foot height restriction. I mean, like I said, it was 20 years ago. It was sold with, we don't want to be Daytona Beach. There was a lot of confusion. There was a second one. So there was actually people that voted yes on both or no on both. So it wasn't one voting for one and one voting for the other. At this point for this property, to see what the highest and best use we could potentially have for the Laceland Plaza, I'm going to vote yes and support it and put it out to the citizens of Jacksonville Beach and let the citizens vote on it. Two other things that we've done to help our downtown business district so people are not biking through us to come back is we've just done a pilot project in front of Oaxaca. I think I said it right. To eliminate some of the on-street parking to allow for a wider sidewalk so we could have outdoor cafe style dining and still having a sidewalk. The third thing we've done is we've created a issue to allow more smaller restaurants to come in our downtown business district that would be a third of the size that could compete with the larger ones. So we would have the ability for our local community and people that want to be chefs to move into a smaller place so we can have our residents can have a vested interest in our downtown. And it's not just tourists, because if we have our residents participating in stores and restaurants, then their neighbors are going to come. Our community will activate that downtown, and this just happens to be one of the potential tools that we can utilize to allow us to activate it. I want to leave this up to the voters, and the aesthetics and the look of the building and what is going to be supported in that RFP and selected. The public it'll be very transparent. The public will have ability to vote on it, or have ability to voice at that time. But like I said, I don't know if it would pass the referendum or not. I want to leave it up to the voters. Thank you.
Mr. Jansen?
So I moved into this community in the early 70s, went from Seabreeze Elementary all the way through Fletcher, and I've seen a lot of development over the decades. And I think tonight some of the messages get lost here. I hear terms high rises, I hear terms 55 feet everywhere. I think what's being missed here is the 35-foot restriction will stay in place. will stay in place. The only time you can go up any higher, and it's limited by how high you can go, you don't get a blank check because you build a sidewalk to go up 20 feet. If you provide some incentives to the city, and those incentives pass the test, then you'll be allowed a certain amount of distance to go up with a cap of 20 at the most. And a lot of properties in our downtown district wouldn't even be eligible for it. So this is a nice test pilot to take a look at it. And somebody brought up the architecture of it. One of the incentives is if you hit your second story, you're gonna have setbacks. So you don't create the wind tunnel that you're talking about. And I think this is a good way to activate the downtown. I too, again, living here, I have a residence here in this community. My parents have a residence in this community. And I don't want a 6-story condo in my backyard. I think the residential areas should remain 35 feet. I'm steadfast on that. But there's a big difference between the residential side of Jacksonville Beach and the business district. And I think the only way we activate it is to bring those incentives in and make these developers give to the city the incentives that we want to see so that you will have an activated downtown.
Mr. Sutton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sort of the new kid on the block with Mr. Horn here, but bring 17 years from the Planning Commission and probably have a little bit of a history of supporting the 35-foot height amendment and where we are today. That was almost 20 years ago, right, in 2004, when the citizens spoke really loud and clear on that charter amendment by adding section 52, and again, to protect public health, safety, general welfare, the aesthetics, loudly saying that no new building would exceed 35 feet. That remains in effect today with no exception other than what was forced on us by the district court in some of their rulings. But what section 52 doesn't do is it doesn't remove the responsibility of this body to determine whenever appropriate, either through changing conditions, some impactful need, something that's in the best interest of the city and its citizens, the occasional review and possible subsequent recommendation to revise section 52. It's not set in stone if the citizens say something different. It's no secret that we have no horizontal solution to the overwhelming and growing lack of parking issue down in the CBD. This very specific project lies on what's a paved surface lot today, and I think we have the opportunity, as we've seen in some of the past development recommendations, to beautify, begin to develop and solve some greater needs, CBD parking relief, and potentially bring some further revitalization to downtown Jacks Beach. The beautiful thing here is that this is simply a recommended solution through an ordinance for an amendment to the city charter to the citizens of Jacks Beach, for them to determine if that would be in the city's best interest or not. Given the dire situation in CBD parking, the lack of impact, honestly, in my opinion, on this particular site with zero residential to the immediate west, there's already greater height than that to the east of this location with the hotel. I think it's a Sheraton Four Points. The benefit it would provide specifically in CBD parking, specifically in and around Ratham Plaza and Seawalk Pavilion, I believe the ordinance to be credible for presentation to the citizens of Jacks Beach. I don't feel this ordinance opens the door into anything further or broader, and I don't know that I would be in support of that anyway. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. I just wanted to add a little bit to that, and somebody mentioned that nobody's asking for this, but I can tell you that the citizens are asking for walkability, they're asking for parking, they're asking for outdoor dining, they're asking for Latham Plaza to be activated year-round. These are all things that we have heard throughout the years, not only from the dais, but also in community visioning meetings. Discussions from the Community Redevelopment Agency, et cetera, et cetera. So why I prefer this with a little more of a laser focus It is a big issue. The 35-foot height limit is something that people are very passionate about, as you can tell from this meeting. But this is a specific property that is owned by the city that is already going to be redeveloped. And it's already under the control of the city, and as Mr. Nichols mentioned, there will be an RFP process, and we will be able to have distinct control over this through public-private partnership like no other development that we currently have going on. In particular, and Mr. Sutton mentioned, it's bordered by, it's at the back loading dock of Carrabba's and a hotel that's much taller than 55 feet. So there's no residential impact. It's not going to be a 5-story parking garage, should everything pass. It's going to be a mixed-use development with parking garage incorporated into it. And the mixed use is going to be based and guided by the vision statement of the needed in our area. And I believe the intention, it was more of office space, retail, no hotel. There's not a hotel that would be intended for this. But again, all of this would be part of the RFP process that the CRA would be putting together in line with staff. So this didn't happen in a vacuum. We're not saying it's going to be 55 feet, but even 35 feet is limiting to commercial development because look how high our ceilings are here. When you go to a store, it's higher than 10 or 12 feet. So even 40 feet is going to be helpful in redeveloping the space. So that's, and the timing of this is great because we're just about to put this RFP out. So, and that is in line with the vision plan. It's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. It will be in conjunction with further activation of Latham Plaza. So to me, this is a very focused opportunity to take advantage of being able to start from the ground, which is already asphalt. It is already a surface parking lot, which is death to walkability in any downtown area. But to give us the opportunity to have some more flexibility, to be able to be more creative, to be able to see some architectural ingenuity that we're just currently not seeing. So this isn't new. This is not. This has been discussed for years, and it's not being made. Decisions aren't being made in a vacuum. But again, this would put this in front of the voters 20 years later to let them decide. So I appreciate and more to come. We have 2 more weeks. Before the meeting, I would like to have a city attorney assessment because with the amendment 20 years ago, we saw a slew of lawsuits and there were tons of unintended consequences that are still impacting our development today and tying our hands on current development based on lawsuits that were decided decades ago. Ms. Golding.
Just a quick revisit to follow up on a few comments that were made. I believe that parking relief can be realized within 35 feet. I believe we can activate the downtown within 35 feet. I believe we can have walkability and bikeability in the downtown within 35 feet, as evidenced by our neighbors in Neptune Beach and Atlantic Beach. I believe that the citizens understand what is before us, that this is not about the whole city, but the citizens do care about what happens in our downtown as well, and 55 feet is important, and they don't want to see 55 feet in the downtown as well as their residential neighborhoods. And I would also mention that Gladding-Jackson Vision Plan had this activating the Latham Plaza area with a 35-foot building. So I just want to provide that additional information in response to some of the things that have been said in support of the fact that I believe that we can do what needs to be done in the downtown within 35 feet.
Mr. Nichols?
One quick revisit, the plan, the Gladding-Jackson plan was also created after the height limit was put in place, so they did not have the ability to even consider something over 35 feet.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? And if this passes tonight, we will be second hearing in 2 weeks. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Sutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Golding?
No.
Councilmember Horn?
No.
Councilmember Jansen?
Yes.
Councilmember Meza?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Hoffman?
Yes, motion carries. That was the last item of business. This meeting is adjourned.